This is great. Hello, everybody in Facebook land. This is Dr. Lynn Erickson from Turning Point Chiropractic. Thank you for being here tonight, everybody. This is awesome. So, in our calendar of events that we create every year, we always try to think of what classes have we not done that are covering topics that we really should have because people have either asked us about them or because they're in the news and kind of like the cultural questions that are coming up. And I think probably in the last 5 or 6 months than ever before, people are actually stopping to think about what am I putting in my body and what am I putting in my home that could possibly be affecting my health. And so the whole Maha movement, right, is actually doing this for us, which is really nice. And I don't know that we'll have a lot of things that necessarily may be banned, but we certainly will have a better idea about what's not good for us. Come on in. Yeah, this is great. And right here, guy, this is your chair. That's good. Yeah. And what could be making me sick? And then let's put it on a label to actually warn people, like we always have now with cigarettes and everything else we know is not good for us too. So this class actually about household toxins is a class I thought of at the turn of the year, and I thought we really need to do something on this. And I actually have some great people that I've worked with to try and reduce our toxic load, both at home and here in the office, come help us with this class and really just share what they actually can do. So normally our classes are roughly 30 minutes. We'll give them both about half the class to talk about this and just real quickly how this fits into a chiropractic lifestyle. I want to go to this thing that you've actually heard us refer to sometimes called the 3 T's. When chiropractors were first looking at human health and actually thinking about how is human health actually lost and how to get that health potential to be expressed in a better way, when they discovered how important the health of the nervous system was and actually how the spine controls and protects that, that's actually how we got into the concept of actually having subluxations that actually interfere with nerves and actually adjustments to correct those. But then the question became, where do subluxations come from? If they're actually that bad for health, do they just show up out of nowhere? It doesn't make sense to talk about an effect without a cause. Well, they actually surmised there were 3 sources that could make us have to adapt in our bodies to that. One would be, they called them the 3 T's. The first one is called traumas. That's what everybody thinks about when they think of chiropractic. I heard of somebody who actually fell down the stairs. They slept wrong last night. They actually typed for 8 hours a day at their computer like this. They used their cell phone for an hour. All these things that we do to ourselves physically that can actually create effects. That makes sense. Number two would be thoughts or mental stressors, right? So we know that, in fact, I'll tell you personally, I've cared for lots of people who are accountants. When do you think they're typically that their worst subluxations tend to occur? Want to take a guess? How about January 2nd to April 15th? Would that be the season of stress? Okay. When do you think, oh, come on in, really? Yeah, it's great. That's for you, dear, right there. That's good. Yes, you won't be on. In fact, that's the most safe position because you're underneath the camera. You're okay. um, but our college students we care for. I guarantee you, the last week of April and the first week of May, when they're cramming all those papers in, finals and so forth, staying up till 2 a.m., caffeine-fueled study sessions, the day after they take their last final, that's when they have the crash and they tend to get sick. And then the last one would be toxins or chemical stressors. So we know that if we eat tainted food, our body's reaction is to actually get that out of there as quickly as possible, either one end or the other end or both, right? Um, there are organs we specifically have to do those things, like our liver and our kidneys and all those various things that actually are there for toxically, but you can actually overwhelm the system and make yourself sick that way too. And I think what I've heard a lot of people say, and these are chiropractors have been in practice for a long time, many of them have been practice for 50, 60 years, they say these things right here are at increasingly higher levels than when the profession was first founded in 1895. Like, I think people actually have a higher toxic load than ever before. How many different things do we have we sprayed on our food, polluted the air with, and so forth that can make us sick? So if we can do things that actually help at least control the environment that we're in our own, say, like office setting like this or a home environment, we can do a lot of good for ourselves by keeping those things to a minimum level. We'll never be completely rid of those things. That's a given. But if we can do things to lower that toxic load, you can be a lot healthier than you currently are. So I'm really thankful to have our guests here tonight. We have Steve Wittenhagen from Bryant Air Conditioning, and then we actually have Kevin from 5 Star Cleaning. And I don't care which order you guys go in. Do you want to go alphabetically, or so we want to jump up like buzzing in Family Feud? Steven? Yeah, okay, great. So Steven's going to take care of the air part of it, air quality. He'll talk about what he can do to reduce that, and then we'll have Kevin go last. So let's give him a nice turning point. Welcome to Steve Wittenhagen. And then we have a quiz at the very end. Steve actually you have to spell his name. That's last name.
Good luck with that.
There you go.
Well, thanks for having me out here. This is pretty neat. Shout out to Dr. Lynn. He's treated me before with his holy water hands on my back when I couldn't walk. So it did amazing things for me. So when it comes to indoor air quality, Dr. Lynn is right in a lot of ways. The outdoor air is on average way better than your air in your house. Especially the way they're building houses now. A lot of houses are airtight construction. They're very tight. We have triple pane windows, you got spray in foam, you have, they're extremely airtight. And all of those chemicals that we use to clean, there's formaldehyde in carpets, there's just all these chemicals that get trapped in your house, and there's no way to get rid of those things. So the where we start with a basis is obviously your furnace filter. Okay. And there's a lot of people, I cringe every time I go to Menards and I'm walking through the filter section and I'm watching people buy the 89-cent filters. Um, if you can hold the filter up and see through it, it's probably not a good filter, and it's not going to catch a lot of those things that are floating around your house, number one. And number two, selling heating and air systems, I can tell you that they're very expensive, and you don't want to put a cheap filter on it just for that reason alone. You're going to get all that dirt and dust that goes through that system and ruins it. But that dirt and dust that goes through that system gets trapped on what we call the coil. And the coil is what's doing essentially your air conditioning part of a furnace system. And as you guys know, when you have air conditioning going, you see water running out that coil, the little hose that goes down to your floor drain. Well, anytime you have water, dark, and dirt and cool, like you do in a coil, that's when you get mold. Okay. So if that filter isn't good and you're allowing a lot of that dirt to go into there, then you're probably going to create mold on your coil. There's a lot of people that have no idea that's even happening on their coil, and they're routinely always sniffing around at their house or whatever. They think they have allergies. It may be as simple as they need to have a service tech get that coil cleaned and then keep it clean. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you got a good air filter. Pleated filters, Space Guard. April Air is a company that specializes in indoor air quality products. We've sold them for numbers of years. Humidifiers, air filter systems that every filter is rated on a MERV rating. A MERV is essentially how small of a micron of dirt that a filter will allow to go through it. The higher the MERV, the better. So you want a good filter to start off with, and you want to make sure you're changing it routinely. For the coil process, there's a lot of products that will help if you have that dirt build up and you want to keep that coil clean. Typically, a UV light is just the easiest way to treat that little light you put in there. That UV will not allow any mold to grow on it after that. I would also recommend that if you live in a house that you bought that's 50 years old and that ductwork's never been cleaned, get the ductwork cleaned. Once you get it clean and you put a good air filter system on it, you shouldn't have to do it for quite a while, if at all, unless you plan on doing a bunch of remodeling or you leave your windows open on a regular basis or anything like that. Humidifiers. In the winter and in the summer, it's very important to have proper humidity in your house. If you don't have proper humidity in the winter, every human, all of us here, the minute I go like this, flakes are falling into the carpet. Everybody does it. We all shed. If you have a dry environment in the winter in your house, you're going to shed a lot more. It's just the way it is. And what eats those little skin particles? They're called dust mites. And if you have a dry environment with a lot of skin particles all over your carpet, you're probably going to have a lot of dust mites. And almost every house does, but you can keep them under control. And typically that's by maintaining proper humidity level, typically between 30 and 40%. If you're doing that, you're probably going to have less allergies because you don't have the dust mite problem nearly as bad as somebody else does. Dehumidifier. Now, we don't have that issue nearly as bad in Nebraska as some other states do. I have been to houses in Lincoln that have had high humidity. Typically, it's because their basement is getting into that water level that it just seems to wick water all the time. You don't see it as often, but if you do have a house that has high humidity in the summer, you need to also take care of that because water, cool in the basement, dark, produces mold. You got to make sure you're always keeping that humidity at a certain point. And a lot of that goes with the air conditioning system. If you have an improperly sized air conditioning system, it's too big, you're probably going to have terrible humidity. So it could be as easy as getting a properly sized air conditioner and not having to add a dehumidifier. The next part of this would be anything to do with, there's obviously the COVID had brought to light a lot of things about viruses and things of that nature. There was a ton of companies that came out with all kinds of different things that would help treat those things. And some of the products that we latched onto first were being utilized even by like Disney on their cruise ships. Everybody heard about going on a cruise ship and then everybody in the ship would get sick, throwing up, and all those things. Disney didn't have that issue, and they were utilizing some products by Remy and Air Night that were treating the air, which helped treating surfaces. There's a lot of products out there, but the ones that I find to be the best, um, the one that we particularly sell, has a honeycomb shape. It slips into your air duct, and the air is flowing through this thing. It sounds like she might need one, actually. Yes. Um, it has a honeycomb. That air is blowing through this. That honeycomb is actually hydrogen peroxide. So as it's blowing this air through that, it's releasing hydrogen peroxides in your ductwork and your registers. And those hydrogen peroxides are floating around your room, and they're treating surfaces, and they're continuing to treat the air even after the fan shuts off on the furnace. So that's a very good product, and hydrogen peroxide is good for us. But it's a combination product, which I like. It has several little fingers on it that statically charge um, dust particles, viruses, because that hydrogen peroxide treatment is killing some of the viruses that are floating in the air. That stuff is still floating in, but this thing will physically charge those particles. So if you have a good filter system, those things will want to attach to the filter even better. So it will help you clean your air. And then it has the little combination UV light because you're trying to mount it above your coil, and it's also treating any mold issues. So it's a combination thing, which is really neat, I think. I have one in my house. Brenda loves this story. Um, if you have, for instance, if we cook bacon in our house, bacon, which I love, by the way, the smell stays around for a long time. It does not in my house because I continually run my fan on my furnace. I have a very nice filter system, and I have one of these air treatment systems. My wife, I didn't tell her for a long time, but she buys the candles and lights them and puts candles all over the place. She likes the smelly stuff. Well, she kept just buying more candles because she thought it wasn't working. And I finally told her, no, honey, you can light all the candles you want, but our system is treating that stuff. And finally, she got the clue there. So the next step would be I was talking a bit about airtight construction, or even older houses that you've remodeled and made airtight. So just adding a lot more insulation, putting better windows, all those things. We love to open our windows to get that fresh air in, and it's a good idea. Obviously, the air outside is way better than air in the house almost all the time. And how can you do that efficiently? If it's 10 degrees outside, for instance, you really don't want to leave that window open for obvious reasons. Um, ERV systems, energy recovery ventilators. These are systems that will they will bring in fresh air from the outside. Let's say it's 10 degrees. They bring that nice fresh air in, and then there's essentially an incandescent wheel or a heat exchanger that's going to take the heat from the dirty air. We pull that heat out, we transfer that heat into the cold air, and we're removing the dirty particles out of that nasty air, and that gets shoved outside. There's two vents. One is bringing the fresh air in, the other one's shoving the dirty air out. But we're pulling the heat out of that air because we don't want to just waste it and throw it outside. So we're mitigating that 10-degree air to 50 or 60 degrees. That air then goes into the ductwork system. So there's 4 ports on it, 2 that go to the outside, fresh air and exhaust, and 1 that's pulling from your return air duct and going back into your supply, and it's pushing that fresh air, back into your house. It's a very simple way of continually bringing fresh air into your house, and if they're properly sized, we can exchange the air, the whole um, cubic foot of air in your house every 20, 40, or 60 minutes, depending on how often you need to do that. So if it's one of those houses that's airtight. If it's brand new airtight construction, it's the only way I sell them, because if you don't have ERVs in those type of houses, you're gonna have mold issues. You're gonna have those issues, and it's a big brand new beautiful house, but then you're sick in it. You got to have that type of system in there. Next, the unseen radon. Um, if you're not testing your house for radon, you better. We live in the number 2, sometimes number 3 state for the highest radon levels in the United States. It fluctuates a little bit, but typically Nebraska's number 2, Iowa's number 1, Kansas. There's a big pocket of uranium way underneath, down in the crust, and uranium, as it depletes, produces radon eventually. I'm not a scientist, but I just know that part of it and how it works. When that radon gas comes up through the earth, it typically can find its way into houses via cracks in your floor in the basement, or however it gets into the house. Can't smell it, can't taste it, you don't know it's there. But radon isn't one of those things where you walk into a house with high radon and you walk out and you got lung cancer. It's a long-term thing. If you hear about grandma that's 87 years old that never drank, smoked, did anything bad in her life, and she's got lung cancer. There's a pretty good chance she probably had high radon if she didn't know about it. So it's definitely worth getting your house tested for radon. And if you have high radon, then you need to find somebody that's going to mitigate that. They put a fan system in, and when that gas comes up to the basement floor, we're essentially transferring that gas. We're bypassing the gas from going into the house and taking it outside and dispelling it outside. So radon is another one of those things that you need to treat. Lastly, I would probably mention, for anything indoor air quality wise, is going to be this is probably more of a safety thing, but it has to do with air. If you're getting your ductwork clean, make sure you're getting your dryer vent cleaned. That's more of a safety thing, but people overlook it all the time. Dryer vents obviously can contribute to bad air in your house, because they can cause that humidity to go up. So if they're not venting properly, you're just getting those type of issues. You're going to get a lot more lint floating in your house. It's very interesting in my house because if you everybody's done this, you sat in a chair and the sun's coming in through the window, and you're here and you can see that sun and you see all the floaties. Some houses are way worse. There's not hardly any floaties in my house, and it's just with those treatment systems that I have in there. But obviously, for the dryer vent, it's more about safety, more about fire, and then the longevity of the dryer itself. If you don't keep those clean, you're probably not going to have a dryer very long. And as we know, it just doesn't seem like any of our appliances are just built very good anymore. It's more that they're just utilizing a lot of computers now. Just about everything we have has some sort of little computer board on it. And if it gets covered in dust, that board gets hot and everything fails on you. So I don't know. I think that's about it. I think I about covered everything on the HVAC side, unless you guys got any questions.
I got two.
Okay, shoot.
One is just generally, how often should a person be changing the filter in their house? All the way from a person who has the fan running only when the AC or heat's on versus those who run it continuously like you.
Run it all the time. There's a couple variables there, and that depends on the type of filter. Okay, so if you have a small little 1-inch filter, those filters typically should be changed every month. Even the pleateds should typically be changed every month. They don't have nearly as much surface area to catch as much dirt. It will increase if you're running your fan continuously, which is a good thing. Running your fan continuously is a good thing. As long as you can tolerate the air noise, or you have a system that you can actually adjust the fan speed, which is what I have. If you have the filter system that I have, which is called an Aprilia Space Guard, my filter has a ton of surface area to catch dirt. So even though we have 2 dogs, I'm still only changing my filter about once a year, and I run my fan continuously. If you have a very high MERV rated filter, like a 16 MERV, which is extremely high, somebody that has really bad allergies, and you're running that fan all the time, you might only be looking at 6 months, if you're lucky. So there are some variables to that. If you live out in the country and you're on a gravel road, you may have to change her more. So, yeah.
My other question is this: you mentioned the ERV, the
Energy recovery ventilator. Yes.
Can it go both seasons? Like you can recover warm air, so it
Yes.
continues in the summer, so that
Yep. Does both. Yep. ERVs are very neat products. We can also use the ERVs to treat radon, for instance. There's a lot of old houses, you've probably been in them, where some of them don't even have a basement. You go down in this hole and it's all dirt, right? Um, those can be extremely hard to try to get rid of radon. You got to try to seal this up with a tarp system, and you're feeding the pipe under that tarp, and you're trying to pull that radon and bypass it around the house. It can be extremely hard. So there are houses where instead of trying to bypass the radon out, what we're doing is putting in a bigger ERV system in it, and we're just flushing, essentially just washing that radon out. We're bringing in so much fresh air that that radon level goes. You can walk out the door right now and there's radon. It's just at levels. You have to be 4 picocuries or less, and that's considered safe. Outside, it's probably 0.5. It's very low because it's washed with all our oxygen and all that. That's essentially what you do in a house like that.
Cool. Anybody else?
A friend of mine has like I think she said it was a reusable, washable filter.
Yeah.
Are those?
I'm not a fan.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, she asked washable filters. Um, there's probably some good ones out there. I haven't seen a lot of them. I think washing there's for a couple reasons. When you get into those, you typically the MERV ratings on those aren't as good. They're not catching as much, because they're typically made out of materials so they don't disintegrate. You wash them continually. Well, like the Aprilaire is the material that they're using looks more like the air filter in your car when you pull that filter out. So I want to catch all that stuff, fold it up, and throw it away. So I'm sure that there's some out there. I'm not a fan of them. I haven't seen one that I liked anyway, but there could be one out there. I would highly recommend um, an Aprilaire, a MERV rated filter. There's also the electronic air filter systems. They're very expensive to install, and you're typically looking about a 3 to 5 year life on them. And then what I see all the time is people, instead of buying a new one, they pull out the metal plates that are in those things, and then they're just shoving a regular filter in them anyway. I don't know that you're gaining that much anyway with those. I would stick with a very nice MERV rated filter, and then put an air treatment system above that to enhance what that filter is doing for you. Because the filter that I have at my house is $59 every year to change it once a year. Electronic air filter systems can be $800 to $2,000, and you're probably lasting 3 to 5 years. So.
That's very good. Thank you, Steve.
All right.
So I learned a lot there. The dad joke opportunity here, of course, is that wasn't just a lot of hot air. It was really good. Okay, thank you. Next, we actually have Kevin Hesterman from 5 Star Cleaning, and I want him to come up here and talk to us about how he can help us keep our floors working well, so that stuff's not coming from there, making us sick too. So let's give Kevin a Turning Point welcome. Very good. Here you go, sir.
All right. Thank you.
I'll sit right over here.
No, you're fine. All right. So, Kevin Hesterman, 5 Star Carpet and Floor Care. We do, my company does truck mount steam cleaning, steam extraction of carpets, furniture, upholstery, tile and grout. We clean and buff wood floors, all kinds of different stuff with flooring. So normally, most people call me not for a lot of times indoor air quality or that type of thing, once in a while, but it's mostly because their carpet's dirty and so forth. But there is a huge factor with indoor air quality and your floors. Um, now, some people may not agree with this, and that's fine if you don't. What's that? No, I got it. But is there a lot of people, this goes back for a while, a lot of people think that hardwood floors or hard surface floors are actually better for allergies than carpet. That's not true. They have done tons of studies on this over the last couple decades. Carpet is actually better for allergies than hard floors, and I'm going to explain why. Steve was talking a lot about the importance of the filter in your furnace, and it is super important. Carpet basically is a filter for dust, allergens, particles that are in the air. Everything that's, everything's up, it comes down, falls on the floor. So the carpet actually acts like a filter, and it traps particles, dust, things like that in it, just like your filter in a furnace does. A hard floor, if you walk across wood, tile, LVT floors, stuff like that, anytime you walk across there, run through there, furnace kicks on, maybe turn a ceiling fan on, everything in that wood floor or that hard surface floor, it's going to get airborne. Does not do that. Carpet maintains those particles in itself, just like a filter does, keeps them from becoming airborne. So from an allergy standpoint, carpet's much better. But the important thing is, just like Steve was talking, you got to, clean your filter out, replace your filter, stuff like that. Same thing has to be done with carpet. Now, most people aren't going to replace their carpet every 6 months because that's just not probably cost effective. But you can do something that is just as good. And the most important thing to do on your own, regular vacuuming is the most important thing you can do, because almost 80% of the contaminants in a carpet are dry particle. So you can vacuum a lot of stuff out. In between that, every so often, you do need to have it professionally cleaned. And the carpet and fiber manufacturers, I'm not saying this because this is the method I use, truck mounted steam extraction is the most effective, best cleaning process as far as maintaining warranties, getting the most effective clean, all that kind of stuff. So you don't have to take my word for it. You can look it up, but you do want to have that done on a fairly regular basis, depending on the type of use. If you have pets, kids, you're going to want to have it done more often than not. So carpet and fiber manufacturers recommend professional cleaning every 18 months to 2 years. But again, depending on your situation, sometimes maybe more like once a year, different, even more than that sometimes in some cases. So anyway, that's the biggest part about the flooring. Like I said, carpet, great as far as allergies because it traps everything. You just have to, like I said, clean it, maintain it, and that goes the same for your other floors too. Like I said, you can clean your wood floor, you can clean your tile floors, damp mop, or whatever. But the second you move on, there's already dust that's going to be collected on those floors. You may not see it, but it's there. So you gotta be kind of vigilant. Some people are, some people aren't. But anyway, that's it's just real important to keep your floors clean, especially the hard surface ones, more than the carpet. But because, like you said, that all that stuff on those hard floors just becomes airborne, and if depending on what it is. But so the next thing I wanted to talk about is, and it kind of deals mainly with the carpet, but it can go for other things too. As far as like odors in carpet, obviously pet problems, pet accidents are the biggest issue. I don't know if I'd be in business if it wasn't for dogs and cats. So That's one, but there could be so many other things. Spilt milk, if you leave that in there, different types of things that can cause bad odors. There's just a variety of stuff. So, but one of the things I wanted to talk about with uh, the odor removal from carpet or really any particular floor, first thing, you have to remove the source of the odor. So maybe it's some rotten food. I don't, not to gross anybody out. Maybe it's a dead mouse. I don't know. Could be anything. But you got to get rid of the source of the odor. Then you clean it, and then you can deodorize it with uh, different types of things, whether it's absorbents, compounds that absorb the odor into itself and then be removed. There's pairing agents, masking agents will only cover up the odor. That'd be like your Glade plugins, you know, whatever, different thing. Candles are a masking agent. They don't solve the problem, but you won't smell the bad odor maybe for a while. So what you really want to do is use something that's going to neutralize the odor like a pairing agent that chemically alters the odor molecules so that you don't smell it anymore. Uh, for cigarette smoke things, cleaning the carpet usually is not going to be sufficient because you're going to need to do the air ducts like Steve was talking about, the whole furnace system. If the smoke odor molecules extremely tiny and they get into everything, the walls, the wood, everything. And so, to get rid of that completely, it's quite a job. You got to seal a lot of things and do all kinds of stuff. Um, but the biggest one I want to talk to is like if we're dealing with pet odors, and I don't know if people can see that, but most people, and this is the biggest thing, when we go into a house to clean up pet stains, pet odors, that type of thing. I just talked a little bit ago about removing the source of the odor. The original source of that odor is what? The pet. Most people aren't going to get rid of their cat or their dog. So, it's one of those things where we can come in, we can try to fix the problem, but unless you're getting rid of your pet, there's no guarantees that we're going to have other issues down the road. But first thing, obviously, you want to identify where stains are, and that's the reason for the blue tape. Those are to signify pet, maybe urine stains, something like that on the carpet. Sometimes you can see them just walking in, boom, 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 you see them. Sometimes you don't see them. That's when you have to use a UV light, use a black light, as some people refer to it, and it'll pick up anywhere that pet has gone to the bathroom. So you identify that. And then the other important thing to know when you're dealing with stain, and this can be any type of stain, whether it's urine, somebody spills a drink, what have you. What you see on the surface of the carpet is the smallest area of that stain that's the least that you're gonna see. When you turn the carpet over, the stain is much bigger. If it's enough to where it gets into the padding underneath, it's going to be even bigger than that. And maybe you have like a Great Dane or St. Bernard, could get down into the subfloor underneath. So depending on the size of the dog. So cleaning the carpet surface will generally not take care of the problem 100%. So what we can do in certain situations, if it's one, two, maybe three spots that are isolated, we have a process that we use where we actually recreate the damage. We mix up a product. We use a pairing agent and basically flood the area, recreating what caused the damage. So that we're actually soaking it into the bottom of the carpet, into the pad, and even into the subfloor. And then we come back with what's called a subsurface extraction machine. It's called a water claw. We can put that down on there and we'll pull everything back up through, and then do a final cleaning and rinsing, and usually that will take care of it pretty well. So that's the one thing you do. The other option is to pull carpet back. You can replace padding with new in the affected areas, seal the subfloor and all that kind of stuff. At some point, my own personal opinion, if your situation is bad enough to where we need to move furniture, pull carpet up, put new pad down, reinstall the carpet, clean everything, it may be more cost effective just to replace everything with new. So, yeah, especially like I said, if this was like a room and there's 3 spots, I've seen it where maybe there's actually more spots than clean carpet. If that's the case, replacements probably do. So that's kind of the biggest problem with that type of thing. So is like I said, you want to base it. Sometimes cleaning isn't the best method. Sometimes you just got to rip it out and put in new and start over. So because there are places that I've seen like that. So other than that, that kind of was the extent of most of what I had. So does anybody have any questions for me?
Those bonding agents that you're talking about that really essentially get rid of the odor.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you have the commercial style of those. Are there agents that you would recommend that you could go and buy at Walmart or whatever?
Sure. Well, there's products. I mean, obviously, there's tons of deodorizers you can buy over the counter. I know I've got a few customers that use the Febreze stuff, that type of thing. But honestly, I don't. There's not really one that I recommend. I now there's a new product and I can't think of it. I saw it advertised on TV. The pairing agent that we use, as long as it comes in contact with the odor, it will eliminate it on contact. And there's a product out now that you can buy. It was on one of the infomercials. I forget the name of it. Sounds something similar to what the product is we use. Maybe it's the same thing and they rebranded it for retail. I don't know, but yeah, the product that we use, it literally will, if it's in contact with the odor, it will eliminate it instantly. So,
My
but
favorite stories are about how people put the wrong thing on and then that ruins it.
sometimes depending on what the stain is, using the wrong product can make it significantly worse. Yes. So I always tell people, give me a call. If I can walk you through it, I will. I'm happy to come out and do an estimate and an inspection and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, that's kind of what I have.
One quick thing,
Yes.
Kevin, if you could. So Kevin actually keeps our office looking really awesome. We have a lot of traffic in here, as you can imagine, and in the winter months especially. So if we're good, Kevin's usually in here sometime around every 6 to 9 months, and just makes it look incredible.
When we remember.
We need to put in our calendar actually. But can you tell me, Kevin, why does that truck mounted unit get the carpeting so much cleaner and so much drier when you're done than say if I rented a rug doctor?
Okay.
Because you get by the power of this thing he has. And then I've actually seen Kevin dump his tank when he's done. That water is gross. You would not bathe in it. I can say that for sure. So
Sure.
tell what the horsepower versus all that.
Yep. So yeah, I mean a rug doctor. I'm kind of going off memory here, but like you're talking 1.5 to 3 horsepower, where the truck mount system's running at about 30 horsepower. The heat is higher when as far as when you're dealing with heat and cleaning, every 10 degrees you double your cleaning power. So the heat is superior. Obviously the water flow as well, like the amount of water we can put through the carpet in comparison to a rug doctor and still extract more out is a huge factor. You're not dealing with the same pressure and the amount of water flow that I can do with a truck mount system and still be able to get more water out leave it drier because the vacuum, has so much more, is so much more efficient and effective. So
If you want to see it in action, come by and watch it. It's fascinating to watch. It's good. Well, thank you.
Wow,
Kevin,
thanks so
that's
much,
good.
Kevin.
So, go ahead. Go ahead.
yes.
So, like in nursing homes and all that, sometimes they'll use like an ICAP machine because it dries quicker. What do you think of that process?
For the carpet, you mean? They're if they're doing an encapsulation process, is that what you're talking about? Okay, encapsulation process is fine. I actually did some of that years ago, but that was mainly because it was in a high rise. You couldn't get the truck mount up there. Uh, Encapsulation cleaning actually works really well as a maintenance type of thing. But every so often, that's you're not getting all that chemical out by the when they come back and vacuum. So that stuff is building up over time. And so maybe every year or so, or every couple of years, you really should have a steam extraction done so that you're pulling all that residue out, because that stuff is building up because they're not getting it all out. So that's the only downside. But as far as an option to the truck mount steam extraction, if I couldn't do that, the encapsulation is a very good option. So yeah.
Great. Well, we're a little bit over on time. Thank you so much.
We'll put this a close here. So thank you guys for your expertise. It's really good. I think it's good to think about these things in new, fresh ways. You might have heard something tonight that maybe makes you think, I should talk to these guys. Yes, you probably should. Have them come to your place, take a look and see what they have to offer, if it can help you. And if it's not for you right now, think about friends and family because all of us have these things. We all have homes with some type of flooring. We all breathe air. And so we want to make sure we keep those as high quality as we can. And so do you guys have anything to leave behind that people can get in touch with you on at all? Pens, cards, anything like that at all? That'd be great. Please bring them in. We'll give them to the people tonight. We'll have them here at the office too. Thanks for tuning in, guys. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week with Laura Carlene on how to make healthy lifestyle habits.